All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Star Wars Mark of Balance podcast and video. I thought for Star Wars Day this year, it's our first day together on the page, and with the new release of The Bad Batch, I thought a new video format with the podcast was in order. And so for the rest of the Bad Batch releases, I'll be doing these video reactions right after I watch the episode. So these are just going to be my off the top of the head thoughts. They might marinate and might change over time, but I wanted to get out these reactions to you as fast as possible. And it's Star Wars Day, so I know you guys want some Star Wars content, of course. So I'm going to try and keep these videos less than 10 minutes, so it's just a quick in and out, get my thoughts, and then if there's anything I miss in here, I might add them to the podcast, and you can listen to the podcast through the link in my bio, and those episodes might be a little longer. And so let's get into the premiere of The Bad Batch, 70 minutes. God damn, I was speechless watching this episode. I mean, really, I was smiling cheek to cheek from the start to the end. I mean, they even, for all of us Clone Wars fans, that beginning where they were like, hey, guess what? You're getting more Clone Wars, but it's under a different name. And the fanfare with the guy doing the announcements again, I thought that was all a cool callback. But right away, they're just coming out with Kanan? Really? Right off the jump? I mean, how perfect. I can't believe I didn't think of it, but it was such a perfect move to finally get to see Kanan lose his master and see how the Bad Batch perfectly fit into it. I mean, it's the best way to do fan service without doing, like, fan service. It just makes sense. And I think it's really symbolic to show that this is the next evolution of Star Wars animation. We're going from Clone Wars and then Rebels with Kanan and now Bad Batch. Like, I think this is just going to be the perfect marriage between the two. Clone Wars, I think, had the much better animation style and tone. And I thought Rebels had the better character-driven story. And I think right now they're just going to put them together for Bad Batch. And I am so excited for where it's going. I mean, this episode really got me way too hyped for what we're going to see with Bad Batch. And I'll be the first to admit I was not very excited for the Bad Batch when they first announced it. I was like, oh, well, they were just all kind of one-dimensional characters. Like, why are we getting a whole show about them? But it just makes sense because they're the perfect lens to look through the aftermath of Order 66 for. Seeing a Jedi's lens would be cool, but I think seeing them is just so much more dynamic because they were clones and they didn't follow the Order, and now they're watching the whole galaxy just like change around them, and they're just like, we don't belong anywhere. And I loved it so far. So I'll get it right out of the way. The animation was unbelievable. Some of the shots were almost photorealistic at this point. It's really amazing how far Clone Wars has come to this point. And the music across the whole episode was pretty fantastic, especially Omega's themes. I was really a fan of what Kevin Kiner has done with the music in this. It's very dark still, of course, but yeah, I'm excited to hear some new pieces of Star Wars music. The first thing I really loved about it was when they got back to Kamino, the Bad Batch were the only ones with their helmets off. Every other clone, even Crosshair, which, a little foreshadowing, had their helmets on whenever they were walking around Kamino. I mean, at some points, Crosshair took his helmet off, but in almost every shot in the first half of the episode, maybe first 30 minutes, the Bad Batch were the only ones without their helmets on. And it was like that, showing that they were separate from these clones that have now become these faceless soldiers that just follow orders and are part of the Empire. And speaking of the formation of the Empire, we got to see Palpatine do the monologue from Revenge of the Sith. I love it. It left me scared. I love that line. And, you know, I know we asked to see more Order 66, but third time in 2 years, Clone Wars, Fallen Order, this, I mean, they are bashing Order 66 over our head, and I love it. More. Give me more. I'll watch it again from every perspective. I love it. But yeah, the transition was the best part of this episode. The complete head games going on in everyone in the Bad Batch's mind, like, is this good? Is this bad? What's going on? Should we be following these orders? Should we be going against these orders? And then when you get to Saw Gerrera, you see this, he's thinking clearly, and they're like, oh, well, you know, the orders are this, but what you're saying makes sense. And he's like, I thought you guys were the smart ones. And I loved it. I loved it. Kamino was really great. I loved how they were even shook by the Empire. I mean, in all the other shows and movies, the Kaminoans were the main plotters. I mean, they were like getting the money. They were one step ahead of everyone, and then this time they're kind of like, oh, I don't know what this Empire thing is, and I don't think I like it. And they were like, we have to start plotting too. I like that dynamic, and now that's going to be in the show too, is really cool. And on Kamino, Echo gets knocked out, and who does he see in the medical bay? Our boy AZ. And we know AZ was the one who took care of Fives. And I am so looking forward to, if they do it, the point where AZ tells Echo what happened to Fives. I need to see that. Echo and Fives were my favorite clones in the Clone Wars because of that brotherhood they had throughout the whole thing. And I really want to see Echo's reaction to it. And I think AZ would be just the perfect thing to convey that information to him. I don't know if we'll get it, but I think that little piece there showing it was really cool. And then I'll just wrap it up with Omega. I really liked Omega. I'm glad that she's going to be a part of the show. I like when they use a young kid to get across that perspective of seeing the galaxy in their own way. And she's going to be like our lens. Like, we're going to see the galaxy through her eyes, kind of. And I think she fits perfectly with the group. I like that she is just like them. She's, high-functioning clone. And that she was basically going to be hunted down too. So she's like, I got to get out of here too. And they came back for her. So I'm really excited for that dynamic. I think that's going to make them a lot better characters because they're going to have to deal with this child. And I think it's going to be just awesome. And I'll wrap it up with the last part of the episode where they get to the cockpit and she's never been in space. And I think like hyperspace is that part of Star Wars that's the most mystical part other than the Force. And I love that they know that, and they specifically made a whole scene just about the wonder of going into hyperspace for the first time. Like, especially when you were a kid watching New Hope, seeing hyperspace for the first time, or any of the movies, seeing it for the first time, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then the fact that they took that moment to do it nice and slow, like, we're about to go into hyperdrive, are you ready? And Omega's just sitting back like, oh my gosh. And, at that moment, you and Omega kind of level. You're like, we're both have the same experience of going into hyperdrive for the first time, and then like as Tech pulls it and the music swells and then it goes. I thought that was such a great way to end the episode, and maybe got a little bit of choke up in there, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, the episode was amazing. I think this really is the next step of Star Wars animation. 60-70 minutes. That's almost movie length, and it never missed a beat. It was on top of it the whole time. And I'm so excited. I love that Crosshair is on the Imperial side, not by choice, but I think that dynamic is going to be really awesome throughout the series. I'm excited to see these characters evolve. They're all basically pretty one-dimensional except Hunter, but I'm excited to see them grow. And Echo, of course. We love Echo. Echo's my favorite. But I'm excited to see them progress and, evolve. And yeah, Bad Batch episode 1. And we got another one on Friday, so we'll be back here on video again. And since it is May the 4th, happy Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, I want to leave you with a quote. Yes, we are fancy around here. And this quote comes from the book Dark Disciples, which is a Clone Wars arc that was never created, or wasn't animated fully. So they wrote a book about it, and some of the screenplay notes were from Katie Lucas, George's daughter. And the afterword, it's not even in the book, it's an afterword. She puts this quote that really stuck with me, and it's a pretty simple quote, but it stuck with me. And I just wanted to share it with you guys for Star Wars Day. She writes, "This book is dedicated to all of us who recognized early on that Star Wars was much, much more than just another science fiction movie, and loved it passionately for that." Happy Star Wars Day, everyone, and may the 4th be with you. That was great.